1. Emerald dubbed the peculiar automobile, the fancying van. The stretched vehicle wasn't extraordinary in regards to its structure, a beaten 1960s Volkswagen, with the famous rusty chrome VW symbol riding on its pale gold nose. Even its exterior, however beautiful, with its painted beach scene banqueted along its facade as if oil on canvas by Charles Mere, wasn't worth regaling no tales. But its interior? Well, that would brand a talking Mona Lisa dull. Emerald, on the other hand, was far from dull. The Brazilian girl entered the world in Ubatuba, a surfer's paradise situated along the north shore of São Paulo state, where only Emerald's sun-emblazoned golden skin could match the splendor of the sand. Funny thing, Emerald had never been surfing. Her dusky eyes held the sadness of a beached whale, but who was I to judge? It had been a while since I experienced a hearty chuckle. She had arrived in Byron Bay because of her father, who shipped with her and the van to the big land down under, where he promised to finally take her surfing, but vanished a little more than a week upon their arrival. And she was left living in the van. Our first meeting occurred by Watergoes Beach. My 6'9" McTavish was tucked under my arm while exiting the waters, and I glanced at the shaper's name inscribed Ben McTavish. If only my name were there, if only I were a board shaper. The Jessie, I'd branded. So that had me grumbling along with the experience of my eyes stinging from the salt water, and bemoaning my life and my wallet from not being able to buy one of those dream houses on the shore, even just a small one, when the tone in her voice stole my attention. It was smooth and deep and warm, like charming waves on a summer day. The girl had parked right by the bay.
"Come experience,"
Emerald called while toying with her hair secured in a bun. And so, after wiping my stinging eyes, which were probably more red than their usually chocolatey hazel brown, I became captured in conversation with the girl, using my charm I'd learned from watching Coach Corey Wayne YouTube videos, and henceforth learned of Emerald's disappearing father, failing to surf, and Ubatuba. She answered shortly, rarely making eye contact. A crowd quickly gathered, and bustling their way in was a Spanish man with long hair slick like leather and his girlfriend, who wore rather cheeky black bather bottoms, which hardly covered her bottoms.
"Experience the fancying van,"
Emerald encouraged the couple.
"What does your van do?"
The Spanish man said in his pointy accent.
"It makes real your deepest fancies,"
she said.
"Just peep at the picture."
She pointed to the painting on the van, the beach scene, and by crikey it was moving, as if alive. The cobalt waves rollicking in and splashing in white foam, seagulls flying in whisking circles, the sun glimmering and sunbathers lazing around on the sand, and there was a super yacht in the water with a party bouncing on the front and rear decks. Perhaps it could give me my dream house. "I'll try it," I said. Emerald ignored me.
"Fantastic,"
the Spaniard proclaimed, and he and his chica shared a hungry smile and scurried into the van. Outside the vehicle, Emerald stood at the driver's door. She stole a brief gander of the bay, and her gentle smile twisted in grey storm clouds. Through the van's dark windows, you could distinguish the couple staring toward the back, with mouths agape. It would be amazing to see inside, but that would require having Emerald's favor, and so I attempted to flirt. "Would you like to go surfing?" I asked her. "With me, Jessie?"
"No,"
she said. The van's front wheel bounced. It seemed like the vehicle struck one of the many potholes checkered throughout the Byron Shire. Then the rear wheels sprang, and then the front once more, and suddenly the van was rocking and swaying in such a leisurely manner, it seemed it was listening and dancing to the John Farnham classic Sadie, the Cleaning Lady. The couple inside were jostling around, and then the van's windows began blacking out, starting from the rear. The lady's face pressed against the window, eyes wide with excitement, and everyone cheered. Then all windows blackened save the front door windows. The van gave a final hula dance before halting its peculiar bouncing, and then Emerald opened the driver's door and jumped into the van. The engine coughed and choked out a plume of pinkish smoke that rattled the exhaust pipe, and then the van rolled away, and up Marine Parade it trundled, passing by Ray's where a couple dressed in designer apparel were entering. 2. Next Wednesday, the van appeared once more in my vicinity. And once again I was catching waves down at the pass, practicing my carving turns when the van strolled down the inlet road next to the crag of Fisherman's Lookout. A splendid opportunity to jump inside the van and wish for my beach pad, and then ask Emerald to hop on my board. So I began paddling over, and upon closing in, it was apparent new paintings adorned the vehicle, a house resting off the shoreline, and it felt like it was my house, and I burst out of the water. But another couple, both blonde this time, entered the van. The VW began bucking and dancing. Emerald got in and drove off with the pinkish plume of smoke and with me calling, "Wait up," but she never did wait up. Until the following Friday. After grabbing a mixed kebab crammed with extra yogurt at Bay Kebabs, Emerald's fancying van drove by, chugging up Johnson Street, and away I scrambled, biting into the kebab and smearing a heap of sauce down my red t-shirt. The van parked along Bay Street before the beach hotel, and as soon as Emerald exited, I waylaid her, my face in her face. "Grr MMFFEEF," I blurted while chewing, then held up a hand, asking her to wait for my swallow. Her face contorted more than my now scrunched kebab. After consuming and wiping my dirty chin with the napkin. "You have to let me inside." It was such a relief to say it, to utter the words, to not miss the van.
No,
she said. Her rebuff slammed like a wipeout. A little girl in a blue frilly dress ran to us with her lips pouting, and Emerald pulled some change from her pocket and told the girl to go buy her mum an ice cream, and away the girl skipped to her mother. Emerald held a glimmer of a smile, like the sun breaking through winter clouds. It all almost spiked me with rare laughter and was a nice distraction, but it wasn't halting my plans forever. "Why no?" I said. "I'm here first and I want to experience my fancies." She shook her head while fidgeting with her tied-up hair.
this van is not for you, Jesse.
"But I want my fancies." She began peering through the approaching crowds with her hungry brown eyes. The multitudes were closing in, and then some guy pushed ahead with his trimmed beard and hair the color of walnuts, which was flowing like a wave you could ride. Emerald eyed him, smiled intently. "No," I said and took her hand. "Let me ride the van." And when desperate people were pushing and shoving me, and I was bobbing around like a board caught in white water, something changed in Emerald's expression. Her eyes softened and she exhaled and said softly,
Hop inside. Climb through the seats. See your fancies.
My legs wanted to detach from my body and run inside the van all on their own. My hand, however, remained holding Emerald's hand, and it was then I released her hand and walked to the van, opened the passenger door, climbed through between the seats and went into the van's belly. The most bizarre thing. It appeared like skin ran all through the van, all around and beneath and toward the back, and it was lying in loose folds and was the color of bruised bananas, yellows and browns and the such. It almost appeared like hair or some follicle was growing in places scattered throughout. The smell was thick, like old clothing you'd find in discarded boxes. Emerald hopped into the driver's seat. "This is almost repulsive," I said. The skin-like substance began moving. It stretched out and slowly began creeping over the windows, and the van started bouncing on its wheels, as it does, and it was bouncing and bucking like a hooked fish. It sent me toppling forward, and I staggered and stumbled and splattered into the rear of the van amongst the thickest skin, and it was all squishy and soft and rough in places, and it grossed me out a little, and despite the van bouncing I managed to stumble back. Catching my breath was reminiscent of emerging from rollicking waves. The skin at the rear started moving, creeping in little shifts. 3. The foul skin crept and wriggled, squirmed and wreathed, and it churned my insides. Then, out of the skin, something emerged. It was white at first, kind of like a white sun rising over a desert. Then two white suns. Nearly side by side they were. Then, as the whites expanded, they formed the shape of two large Sharon footballs. A pinkish sphere glowed in the center, reminiscent of eyes. The skin began slithering beneath the eyes now blinking and watching. "What is this?" I called to Emerald and looked back for support, my heart jumping like the van. But the skin had closed over the driver's seats and enclosed the small area, one side window remaining. Facing the eyes once more revealed more skin moving, and two slit-like nostrils emerged below the eyes. A large portion slithered sideways beneath, and purple lips bubbled and surfaced. They stretched nearly across the rear of the van, until they unwrapped into a mouth. The lips were purple like plums with whitish splotches like giant ulcers, and the teeth were as big as my hands, bigger even, and possessed a reddish hue. Lunging for the final window, I banged against the glass. "Heel LLP!" I called, but it felt like my voice was muffled to the outside as the crowd watched on, and they were cheering and clapping. The skin closed over the window. The eyes spread their whitish-pinkish hue throughout the van, like being caught in a glowing jellyfish. The mouth opened.
What's your deepest fancy?
The mouth said, the voice wet and slippery. "Huh." The eyes narrowed, skin scrunched around them, lips pulled back to reveal the reddish teeth.
Your fancy?
I said, stumbling, trying to relax my heart rate to enable speech. But my throat was tightening just over the thought of asking for a beach pad on Watergoes, and so I thought of Emerald arriving here and losing her father and living in the van, and I pondered the relaxing blue of the ocean and the waves rolling in, and then my throat slackened and my thoughts all tumbled into place. And then I uttered my wish, between the van and I. After hearing my deepest desire, the face, or skin or whatever it was, awkwardly kind of nodded, and then it breathed in deeply, and the wind drew in around me before a puff of pink smoke began billowing from the nostrils. It swirled around the van like a tornado, comprising the scent of my favorite strawberry milkshake, from Bella Rose Gelateria, and the pink swirled and twirled, and yet it was cold and had a taste like snow. It began to fill my lungs and my head became light and dizzy. Then the van rocked and rumbled away. The smoke continued to bellow forth, and all felt pleasing, until a tongue lashed out from the mouth and gift-wrapped around my stomach and arms. It was purple and rough and wet, and had the muscles of a giant carpet python. It slowly dragged me toward the mouth. "What's happening?" I called. The mouth mumbled while its tongue held me secure.
People make a wish. I eat the greedy sods and fulfill that wish.
"The pictures on the van," I said to the face. "Isn't that a portrayal of their dreams being fulfilled?" It shook its face, wagging me back and forth, captured in its tongue.
That is them.
It said.
They live in my stomach forever.
Such a horrible fate. And then the great mouth opened wide and the tongue lugged me inside, and it was all pinkish and mushy and damp and smelling like strawberry still. The mouth closed all around and all went black, all of it mushy and wet, and it pushed against my hands and feet and face. It contracted to and fro, and then I began to be squeezed into a hellish tight fold of a moist substance. Then, like being trapped under an eternal wave, my breath was gone. Maybe a minute passed by, maybe an hour, a day, a week, whatever, but my senses returned and something was pushing me through this soaking slimy tunnel, and then I plopped out into daylight and landed on something soft. It was gold and smooth, a brilliant stretch of sand. The pass of Byron Bay was my location, experiencing a glorious carroty sunset that painted the sky. Fisherman's Lookout was there, and Julian Rocks out yonder in the deep blue. It was part of my wish, but not all of it. Stuck upright in the sand was my McTavish poacher board, and a figure was approaching behind it, which soon emerged into Emerald. She draped her arm around the board, with her hair all long and wild and free, and she was smiling at me with her rows of white teeth as she stood in a white billabong rash shirt and pink shorts cropped nicely above the knee.
"Hey Jesse,"
she said, voice like fresh dripping honey.
"you ready to surf?"
My brain was dazed. "Are we in the van's belly?" Emerald laughed, a sound filling the air like the cry of an excited dolphin.
"No. My father is though. He's stuck on the party yacht. I never made a wish."
"That's sad," I said. "About your father?" She shrugged.
"His wish."
She pointed behind to the ramp. A turn of my head revealed the rear of the van vanishing.
"The van is leaving for a new town,"
she said.
"to find a new host."
"Why didn't it keep me?" The Brazilian girl stretched her hand down, and her golden hand held my tanned hand, and if sparks actually occurred, electrifying blue and green would have been zapping from our hands like the northern lights of Norway. Emerald helped me stand.
"Because you wished for another."
Telling this story now at the local beach hotel, people often and nearly always remark that I saved Emerald from the clutches of the fancying van, but it's really quite the opposite. During that glorious sunset that evening, we walked out into the azure ocean, and through the crisp chill of the foaming breakers, and there we were, and I laid the board down in the water for the girl, and was readying to fulfill my desire of helping Emerald to paddle and to surf, when a frothing rogue wave struck us and splashed my eyes with a great surge, the salt stinging. I laughed. Copyright 2024 Clint Lowe. All rights reserved. Heroes Press.